This is a second part to lesson 1.7, and we are going to start with writing decimals as fractions. So yesterday we saw that you could write a fraction as a decimal, and today we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to see how fractions and decimals are equivalent. So what you need to know in order to do this is the place value of the last digit of the decimal. So let's look at an example. This says write 0.85 as a fraction. Now in class I will say this as 85 hundredths. And how I do that is my 8 is in my tenths digit and my 5 is in my hundredth digit. Now since this 5 right here is in the hundredth digit, then I'm going to take my entire fraction and I'm going to take the decimal 85 and put it over 100. Since that was the hundredth place. Now this fraction is not in simplest form, so I'm going to look at both my numerator and denominator and see if I can factor anything out. I know that I can factor out 5 from both the numerator and the denominator. 100 divided by 5 would give me 20. And 85 divided by 5 would give me 17. Since 17 is prime, I know that there is no other way that I could simplify this fraction. So the decimal 85 hundredths or 0.85 could be written as 85 over 100, or better yet, 17 over 20. So right here I can say that it is equivalent to 17 over 20. Okay, so now we're going to look at some with a mixed number. So when we have a mixed number, there is our whole number right here, and then this is our decimal part. This decimal part is going to be our fraction part. So I'm going to leave my whole number 4 as my whole number, and then I need to look at my decimal and figure out what place value is my last digit. So this 5 is in the thousandths place, so I would write 375 over 1,000. Now I know that that's not in simplest form. I could start by dividing by 5, but I know that I can also divide by 25. So I'm going to divide my numerator and denominator by 25. Go ahead and pause the video and see what that gives you. Okay, so when I divided 375 by 25, I got the numerator 15. And when I divided 1,000 by 25, I got the denominator of 40. Now both of these still have the factor 5, so I can divide out 5 from both my numerator and my denominator. I'm still going to have the whole number 4. And then 15 divided by 5 gives me 3. And 40 divided by 5 gives me 8. So my answer would be 4 3/8. Now, some common mistakes people make when they are doing these types of problems is they forget to have their whole number 4. There is another way you could have done this problem. You could have also put the entire whole number, so 4,375 over 1,000. This is an improper fraction, so you would then have to turn your improper fraction into a mixed number, which would give you 4,375 over 1,000. And then from that point, you would continue how we did above. I personally think the top way is easier. You just have to remember not to forget your whole number. Go ahead and try 3.424. I want you to write that as a mixed number. Go ahead and pause the video, and when you're done writing your answer, go ahead and check back in. Make sure you write it in simplest form. Okay, so when I wrote 3.424 as a mixed number, I had 3 as my whole number. And then since the 4 is in the thousandths place, I put 424 over 1,000. I then started by dividing my numerator and denominator by 4, and I got 106 over 250. That was still not simplified enough, so I divided each of them by 2, leaving me with 3 and 53 over 125. If you did not get this answer, go ahead and correct your mistake. And if you're still unsure, please write a question about which part you were not sure about. Okay, so for this type of problem, you have 4 different fractions that we need to order from least to greatest. Now, when you're looking at these, you might not be able to find a common denominator quickly. So another way that you could approach this problem would be to turn each of these fractions into decimals. So what I want you to do is pause the video and turn each one of these fractions into decimals. Remember that in order to turn a fraction into a decimal, you have to remember in and out. The top number goes on the inside, and the bottom number, or the denominator, goes on the outside. So for example, 17 over 400 would be 17 divided by 400. And then you have to start with your long division. So you'd ask yourself, how many times does 400 go into 17? You need to add a decimal and a 0, and then you'd continue and so on. So go ahead and try that on your own and then check back in once you're done. Okay, so you can see that I have each of my fractions and I have the work matching my long division for each problem. So go ahead and check if you got the right answer when you divided your numerator by your denominator to get a decimal. If you did not, you would want to pause right here, go ahead and check your work and compare it to mine and see how you need to fix your mistake. If you are still struggling, please write a question, which we will go over tomorrow. So when I'm looking at these problems, I have 17 over 400 equals 0.0425, 1 over 25 equals 0.04, 1 over 30 equals 0.033 repeating, and 9 over 25 equals 0.072. So what we're going to do is we are going to compare the digits and their place value. So in my tenths place value, I have a 0 in this number, a 0 in this number, a 0 here, and a 0 over here. So I can't compare which one's larger yet, or smaller. So now I need to go to my tenths digit. Right here I have a 4, those are the same, so I can't compare which one's larger, a 3, and a 7. So based on that, I know that my 3, my tenths value, is my smallest, so 1 over 30 is going to be my smallest fraction. So I use this one, I'm going to put a little check mark so I know I'm done. I also know that this one, since 7 was in my tenths place value, that is larger than 4. So that is going to be my largest fraction, so I'm going to put that on the other end. I'm going to place a check mark right here so I know I use that one. Now I have these two fractions, and I have to compare the thousandths digit. In this one right here, there's no number after 4, so there would be a 0. So I compare 2 and 0 and ask which one's larger. And since 2 is larger, that would be my second largest fraction. And my fraction that had the 0 would be my second smallest fraction. So in order to do these, what I see most students struggle with is they think because this number goes on forever, it must be the biggest. Or because this number looks like 425, it must be bigger than another one. So just make sure that you are comparing digit by digit and place value by place value. And then also make sure that in the end, you are placing your original numbers in order from least to greatest, not just your decimals. Okay? And that is going to be it for today's lesson. Make sure you have your notes written down and bring them to class tomorrow.